Life lessons for a time such as now. This episode, we're going to talk about avoidance, how we deal with eternal pain. You thought the last episode was good? This is going to be just as good. So before we even get started, please click like and subscribe, but also share. Share the wealth. Let everyone hear us. So, avoidance. Why do we do that? Right? If something is really hurting me, I could talk about it with me. I believe for me, eternal pain is so severe, starting from childhood, like we always talk about. I believe it comes from that, which is called trauma. So I've had a lot of trauma in my life. And so it's still sensitive, not necessarily now, because it was like a work in progress. But still, nevertheless, this is the pain from when I was younger. So let's say, for an example, we talked about abuse a lot in some of our previous episodes. But I was abused even as a kid as well, and different forms of abuse. So if anything that triggers that part, I would just put it under the rug, right? Anything that triggers some of that pain to remind me that I'm worthless, I immediately hide it because it was too much, too overwhelming to deal with. And so whether it was a relationship with a man, whether it was, a job, rejection, from any avenue, right? It could be work, it could be a man, it could be a relationship with one of your family members who called you crazy. It could be a family member who stole from you or who did you dirty. Whatever it is, it still connects you to some of that trauma, right? It still connects you to the original pain. And I remember I was with this guy for many years. I spoke about him last episode. And I remember the way he was talking to me one day in the car. And his voice is very deep. He had like almost a Barry White voice, tone. And I remember he was just being just arrogant, just mean-spirited. And I could say some other words to describe the way he was talking. And I remember I looked in the wind, I was looking outside of the window, and I felt this, it was overwhelming, this feeling of sadness, this feeling of worthlessness. And I felt Tracy with these knee-high socks, pigtails. I was that little girl again. And I was the little girl looking out the window. I was looking out the window because it connected me to when I was little. And right then and there, I knew I had to get out of there. I had to get out of that relationship because it brought me back. I feel like, sometimes with avoidance of pain is to not accept the truth. And we talked about the truth before. But if you kind of dodge, certain things in your life, it's easier to digest for yourself so that you can continue to do what you needed, to do, or to continue to do it, right? Even though it may not be good for you, or even though it may hurt. And I feel like sometimes we tell ourselves lies, which this is part 2 of what we talked about last episode, the lies we tell ourselves. Sometimes we do it to avoid accepting the fact that maybe this is no good for me. Maybe, Tracy, the reality is you need to leave that job. The reality is you need to leave that man. The reality is, although that's your friend for a long time, you may have to cut them off. The reality is they may be a family member. Just because they're blood doesn't mean they're good for your spirit. You know, what do you think about that, Crystal?
And I agree with that. You know, as I spoke in the last episode, you know, pull stuff way, way down, you know, to avoid, the pain and the hurts. And sometimes we just stay too long. We just stay too
You
long.
said that. That's it right there.
And it was funny. I'm gonna tell you a little story. It was that I was so low in my life. There was so many things going on um, in my life. My son was acting up, and my marriage is just downhill, and it was just so terrible. We was having a revival at church, and I just pressed my way, if you will, pressed my way, and I just sat there, and I was just so low. I don't think I could get any lower. Well, that's a lie because I did get lower. But this young man, an old soul, he had to be about, I don't know, maybe in his late 20s, but had an old soul. And he was preaching and he went in and then he stopped. I knew it was the Lord. I knew it was the Lord. He started prophesying into my life. And he said to me, "You should have been gone a long time ago. 10 years ago, you should have been gone." And that was the 10 years at that point was 10 years in this relationship of, my marriage. Like you, Renee, we was together for like 20 years, but we were married only 9, going on 9 years or 10, whatever it is. I don't even know. But the point is when he said that, he said, now get this, you are, wait, no, let me get this right. He said, "You've been in your addiction too long."
Mm.
Mm.
I was like,
Mm.
what? So, everybody in church, like addiction, the first thing you think of is drugs, alcohol, things like that. But no, he was talking about my relationship and me staying there, being addicted to my pain.
Mhm.
That's
And
good right there.
yeah. And when you become addicted to your pain, then you lose your happiness. And this is reason I was like, God, please help me. I'm so unhappy. I'm tired of not being happy anymore. But it was me that was keeping myself unhappy. So today I choose to be happy because being happy is a choice. But you can sit there and go through so much in your life, and life just happens. And the pain becomes so overwhelming that you don't realize that you have built a wall around yourself. Like Fort Knox, you can't even break it down because you're trying to protect yourself from pain, from hurt, from all those things that you endured in your life. And a lot of it is because we allowed it to happen to us. So when that prophecy came through, it was like, wow, I'm addicted to my pain. How can someone be addicted to pain? That made me think about that. And I'm still thinking about it. Like, how can you be addicted to pain? Because you get so used to it happening that it becomes the norm. And before you know it, you don't even realize that that's what's happening. And it just becomes a part of your life. Then we begin to accept and settle. So that's how I avoid my pain. And then sometimes we just ignore it because it's just too much to deal with. So overwhelming. And that's it for me. So I am getting delivered and set free from my pain.
That's
How
awesome.
you feel about all that?
Well, avoidance is actually a psychological term, and uh, trauma, and it's actually the fields, ironically, that I work in as a mental health professional, where mental health is it's real. And getting that attention to, that part of your sensory and your brain. I had a conversation earlier with Tracy about the tapes. And, when I said this some time ago, being in this field, when we all three talked together on our last three-way, that I didn't know when God chose this profession for me to be in, all of the healing that would come. Like, firstly, the awareness, because you're sitting in a classroom or sitting in a symposium, or you're sitting, amongst peers or whatever, cohorts. And the further along I got in my education to completing my PhD coursework and understanding the psychological impact of what happens to us in our brain when we are traumatized. They are actually attachments to the sensory in your brain and the synapses and the syntaxes, and they link themselves to the story. And so it goes to exactly what, in theory, if somebody slaps you, you'll never remember what the feeling of the slap is, but when somebody raises their hand, you remember that, and the tape replays, and it gives you the same behavior, the response, right? And what you're talking about, Crystal, is that response, that addiction to the pain. And the avoidance is because, like, who wants to feel pain, right? And so we get busy. I know that's what I did. Like, I get super busy. I I am a overachiever. I stay in school because that's me. That's I'm moving. I'm moving. I gotta be moving. I'd work 5, 7, 7, 8 jobs. I'm moving, moving. Gotta stay busy. Gotta stay busy. I even relocate. Well, God set me still in Connecticut this time to not move for 15 years, and that's based upon my daughter. But that was so that He could set me still long enough so that I could not no longer avoid the pain. Because up until then, I was a road runner. Like, I'm up and down North Carolina, Maryland, Phoenix, Arizona, across the way, up the way, down the way, anything to not sit still, right? Because the moment, which now I'm comfortable with it, with God, when I sit still, because now that's my alone time with Him, and He deals with me in that time. It helps me how to not avoid the pains of my life, plural pains. And that's an internal pain that, that no man can fix, right? No drug can fix, no job can fix, not even my children can fix. And, in a lot of ways, I love my children, like, more than cook food, my sons, and my daughter. And, even being a mother couldn't fix it. And I mean, there are, spaces in time when I know that I'm going to have to, face some of this. And when the tapes start playing, I make this reference to, I grew up in the 70s, and then the 80s came and the boombox came. And, I was a big music, always and still am a music fan. So we have the physical tape, the cassette tape, and the cassette tape, you could take it, and when it's spleen, you split and pop, we take it, we splice it, and we tape it back up and roll it up there, and then pick up the beat, and it'll just keep on playing, right? And that's kind of what our brains do. That's what our sensory connection to our emotion, that's what it does in our brain, and it repeats itself, and it just stays there, and it's just like, press, rewind, play, press, rewind, play, right? And or rewind, play, press, play, whatever way you want to go and format. And so for me, when I recognized that that was what I was truly doing whenever I picked up and moved, I mean, I can't move a fly now. Be like, I try to move a plate to the side of the table, and I just can't do it. I want to move so many different places, but God has really given me such a peace about all of that pain and internalization through, first, my work, number one. And I don't talk about it a lot. I think that people feel some type of way when I do, but I don't care about that, because I know that if it wasn't for this work, I don't have, between that and my daughter, I don't know where I'd be, because I use external things to also utilize. And we talk about addiction, we talk about men, talk about gambling, talk about, drinking, alcohol and drugging, and all of that stuff can't numb the pain. None of it does. You can't take away none of that pain. The only thing that I know that has ever taken away the pain for me has been God, the Almighty, and letting the Holy Spirit
Amen.
get in. And I used to say suture. I can hear it saying scalpel. We're going in, stacked, I'll be like, I'm coming back to life, because hey, I know I was avoiding. I know that I was avoiding the truth, between trying to come up with, because if you come up with, you don't want to believe the lies, and you got to face the truth.
Right.
So the truth is that your ex-husband really don't love you, right? The truth is that your family really did abandon you. The truth is that your mother did abuse you, right? The truth is, so now who wants to feel that? So you start avoiding, and when it starts attaching itself to behaviors, it's like I can it to like put in a brake, like a hard, you ever been driving and you not paying attention for a minute, and you look up and it's like, boom, like you could just see yourself like colliding with the truck, no less, a Mack truck right in front of you, And I thank God that he does that for me, puts it on like a deep, like brake hold, like almost pull up the emergency brake back when there was emergency brakes, right? When you could pull up the emergency brake, just so that I could be able to deal with that internal pain. And I thank him because he never did it right away, because we'd be dead.
Right.
Just so
Right.
that would just kill us. You can't do it in one sitting. You ain't getting no deliverance. And anybody tell you that, that's a lie, right? That you can't get delivered in one sitting. You have to let God do it over time, over time, over time. And so I'm grateful, that the work that I do has shed some light in major ways on where and how it's systemically has all of us. It's a lot of people. Our parents went through it. Our parents went through it. We've been enslaved, for years. We believed the societal lie, whatever they told us, and that pain that came with that. We have pain that has been, for centuries cascading over us as a people. Right. And so if you take that and then internalize that, and whatever that means, it can start to unravel some hidden pain and some other things that, I'm sure is worth talking about. But yeah, Chris, that's kind of, how I resonate with that when I hear y'all talking about, avoidance
Yeah.
and internalizing pain.
Listening to you and Crystal, I started, just thinking back when we were younger and how I used to just run. So I get exactly what you're saying, Renee. I used to run like I couldn't stay still either. It was like I was hyperactive or something, right? And it wasn't the fact that I was hyperactive. I just didn't want to sit still long enough to feel any pain. And I remember I would party all the time, because there ain't nothing like a good party from sun up to sundown, and then the next day again. It's nothing like it, right? And I was running around, partying, having a good old time, fighting, dating, did it all, right? And it still didn't numb it. Renee, you are absolutely correct. It was God. I always think about my life. And sometimes, I rewind it, right? Just like a tape, and you could just rewind your life. And you go, wow, glory to God, I wasn't on drugs. I wasn't an alcoholic. I wasn't a prostitute. I wasn't on the pole. You know, I I wasn't, I'm able to speak, clear English. At least I hope I am. And I look and I go, wow, with all that I did, it was like self-destruction, right? Didn't realize it then, but it was self-destruction. I was really, trying to hurt me and didn't know it. But I was trying to hurt me to make myself feel better. Does that make sense? Right? I know it doesn't.
Right.
I know it doesn't.
Like,
You
no.
know, hence I was absolutely dysfunctional, right? Because I was just running around like a dog chasing his tail and thinking I was going somewhere, but I really wasn't. I couldn't figure out how to get rid of this pain. And I remember one day I was praying to God and I said, everyone keeps talking about love, right? I felt like I've always had a relationship with God, even when we were younger. Renee and I talk about that when we were young, how we didn't even understand that. And we'll get into that, you know, in a few episodes down the line. But I remember talking to God, you know, as an adult, had all my children going through all kind of hell. And I said, I want to pray to you, Lord, and I want to say I love you. But how can I tell you that I love you if I don't even know what love is?
Mm.
Can we start with showing me what that is? Because I felt like I didn't know what it was. It wasn't defined to me by action, right? So I connected love to pain, right? Because that's what I knew. And when I tell you, that's when God started allowing me to see my truth. And when you start looking at your own truth, you have to pull back the sheet, if you will, of all that pain, all that mess, all up under there. Pull that rug back. You'll see all that dust, dirt. And I had to look at it. And although it was hurting me, I said, I wanted to feel it. I wanted to feel that pain. I wanted to cry it out. I wanted to do some mourning. I wanted to do what it was taken for me to be released from some of that pain. Right? Subconsciously, I didn't know that I was avoiding it.
Mhm.
That's true.
I was just running around like a nut. I didn't know I was hiding from the pain, but God showed me that. And once you uncover it, baby, you can't cover it back up under that rug because now you see it.
Mhm.
Once you see it, you got to react to it.
That's true. That's true.
You
And
know,
I remember that. I remember that specifically that same prayer, and he will do it. So be careful. Don't be going running and asking him to show you, because it is a risk worth willing and taking it is all day, but he will do it. He will show it to you and he will reveal it to you. And it is painful. And I mean, snot tears, you ain't seen snot tears till you start letting God reveal that pain and unrug you, if you will.
for
Yeah,
me,
that's a painful place.
yeah. And I think that's where I am right now. Not that I ever ran around, I was the opposite. I sat in my pain, I dealt with my pain. Um, but then my pain, I would like build a wall, you know. So, like you said about that little mechanism that go off in you, you know, when that pain come, I shut down. That's
Mhm.
how I avoided, you know, my hurt. I shut down, and then before you know it, this thing became a big mountain. That this wall was so big, and I did that when I was younger, when I was in my teens, and I said I would never um, do that again to myself. You know, because pulling down the layers and taking a bulldozer and trying to knock this stuff down, because then the things start taking root.
Mhm.
You don't even realize that it start taking root.
Mhm.
Now, where I stand today with all my pain, and yes, I'm asking God to let me feel it because I'm numb now, because I've been hurt so much and so deeply that I feel numb. And I had to ask myself, and I had to ask God, like, oh God, can I ever feel again? And I feel, but not like I used to. Not that I was ever a crier, but I used to be real, not real emotional, but emotional. But right now, I'm just like I don't know, throw the bulldozer at me. You're not going to knock me over.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? I don't feel the pain as deeply as I used to. And I think it's something wrong. Psycho. It's like, you know,
I
like,
won't say
I,
that.
I feel psycho sometimes, like, dang, what's wrong with me? I want to feel the pain. I want to feel emotion, deeper emotion, because I don't want to come across like I don't have no emotion, because I do. I mean, but I just feel sometimes so emotionless because I'm so numb. I don't want to feel that way. It's terrible.
I think that, it rings true for me. It's like that goes back to the lies we tell ourselves, like I don't feel nothing. I don't care. That's all right. It's a part of avoidance. That's really what avoidance is. They ain't do me nothing. Oh, well, whatever. And you hear this colloquialism, you know what? I'll get over it. It's best they going anyway. Good riddance, right? Whatever. And that's me. Like I'm the queen of shut down. I block people too. I don't play. I will cut you off and block you, right? But really, in terms of what that really is, in terms of where I'm at psychologically, that just means I'm just cutting you out. Boom, I don't want to deal with you. I don't want to deal with you till I'm ready to deal with that pain, right? And it's like, okay.
Right.
So there's a good side of being able to, self-regulate and be able to come to terms with, is it an appropriate time, right, to deal with that. But what is unhealthy is when you let it do that mountain thing that you talking about, Crystal.
Right.
You know what I mean? When you start building walls around yourself and then it's impenetrable and folk can't get in, right? Or you can't even get in, right? That it's going to take God to come and chisel and bulldoze and do all of that good stuff, right? Because it goes back to that clear picture, like, and Trey and I were partying with, she's not lying, like sun up, sun down. It was easy to do that. Like, and just partying. And it was just like, I mean, we love music. I know that that's, hands down. But the other part of that was, all of the, and I could just hear the thump, 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 right? It's just like, because it's like everything, like, just get it out, just get it out. And that was the exercise. That's the physical part about just like, I'm just going to get it out, get it out, get it out, get it out, right? But sure enough, when we separate and go home and curl up, and we looking at that shade, like close that window, trying to be like, okay, I don't want to see the sun right now. I need to sleep. When you wake up, guess what's waiting for you? That pain. And, avoiding it is not the answer. I mean, obviously, but we also do know that there's a flip side that like we're saying, like the elephant in the room is then what is that pain, right? Because we're talking about an internal something that, and when you internalize something, it resonates, it takes that root, right? It is that root that is, it's there. It's like deep seated. That's the the clinical term. It's a deep seated area that is set and it's not moving. Then if you go back to the original statement of what it being for trauma, re-traumatization, trauma on top of trauma on top of trauma, you can't take all of that trauma, and we don't have to discuss it, and nobody got to raise their hand. But when you start talking about, rape, molestation, incest, um, drugs, alcohol, beating, physical, emotional, beat down, you ain't even 10 yet. Okay. And these are what happens. It's just layers. So your body automatically is going to protect itself, right? Because you have to do that, because you have to survive. Because then otherwise you're going to be running around and you will be required to take medication and be, committed somewhere or committing suicide or something worse, right? Or attempting suicide, or something worse, right? Actually completing it, right? And so we choose to self-medicate and do whatever we did, right, to make it through. But the reality is you only talking about a decade of life. And I always akin it to, like, when I look at my children and how I tried, and I know, I'm a mother, I'm fallible, but I tried my best to avoid for them to have to experience any type of pain that I had experienced by the time they were 10, right? And 13 and 15. But by then, I'd have lived 3 lifetimes already. And just at 10 and 12 and 13 and 15. So when you take and you put all of that together, and we not even on the precipice of adulthood, of young adulthood. I ain't go to no prom. I didn't have no limo come pick me up. I was on the 16th birthday. I was with my legs popping out, my oldest son. Okay. And when you're talking about that as yet another type of trauma, 23 and a half hours of labor at 15. No 15-year-old should be having no child. That it happens. I know that. But I'm just saying, as that I'm an adult now, right? And I could recognize that's an internal pain, right? And then to be abandoned on top of all of that, right? And to not, know what real true love is on top of all of that. And so, here you only have a short span, just like that, of life. And you've already been re-traumatized over and over and over and over and over again. So it's a mechanism, right, to avoid the pain. But thank God that when we do cry out, after we get to a certain age, like Paul said, when I was young, I spoke as a child, right? But when I became old, right, it's like, give me that meat. I don't want that milk no more, right? You start learning how to face some of that, hopefully, and deal with it and approach it in a different way so that you can, get some of that, because it's too much. I see like 4 or 5 Louis Vuitton trunks and bags and suitcases, and it's all this stuff you carry around, and we only human, we only one body. We wasn't built to carry all of that pain at the same time. That's not
Right.
what our bodies were made for.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you, and I definitely understand it. And I just have to tell a story. It's a little light. Let me make it a little light. It's about Crystal. Crystal knows about avoidance. If I may share the situation with you and Tyrone, we were all going out.
Go ahead.
So
That one though.
I'm sorry.
I'm gonna get you though for this one, but go ahead.
No, because when we're talking about avoidance, I'm laughing, and the way you were talking, I said, "Oh, she's good at avoidance." So many years ago, we were all going out, and my brother Tyrone and Crystal, would see each other, and they would, be together. And Crystal would come to New York, when we all was there. And I think it was around the time I was in Winston, Renee. And so anyway, fast forward, we were all going out, and it was like the whole family, like it was a bunch of us. How we all fit in that car, I don't know. But it was a bunch of us in the car. It was guys and girls. And I was still married during that time. And so the guys was like, listen, we're all going out. And the girls are gonna go out. So the girls like, okay. We all was like, yeah, we need a break from these guys anyway. Except for Crystal. Crystal says, no, I'm going with Tyrone. So Tyrone was like, no, I'm going with the guys. Okay, so then I'm going with you with the guys. So we was like, come on, Chris, you're holding us up. Let's go. The girls, come on, we want to get rid of these guys. It's so annoying. Like, come on, we gotta go. Nope. Not. And when I tell you, everybody was against Crystal. And he was even saying, listen, go with the girls. Nope. I want to hang out with the guys. Nope. So ask the question, where did she end up going? With Tyrone. Because she wasn't hearing, she wasn't hearing go with the girls. You know what I'm saying? She didn't hear it. And I think, and if I go back to that, I think too, that's when you knew how to like just disconnect from things. Because when I tell you we were after her, we were screaming at her. I mean, all of that, Renee. We were screaming at her, and it was like she was in a trance. It was like, I don't care. But it was like that's where I'm at. You see what I'm saying? And I was like, wow, that's a skill. because I'll be ready to fight everybody, right? I'm like, who? What y'all talking about? You know, she was like, it was like rolled off her shoulder.
Because it did. Because what y'all didn't realize, I didn't give a dag on what y'all was saying. I'm going to have it my way. I don't care what Tyrone was saying. I didn't care what you were saying. I didn't care what everybody else said. At the end, while y'all wasting y'all breath fighting and getting all tired and out of breath, that's why I was sitting there looking at y'all like.
That's what it
I say
sounds
it's
like to me.
avoidance.
It doesn't sound like avoidance, truthfully. It
I
sounds
wanted
like
to
you
make
just
it
wanted
light.
what you just wanted what
Was
you
doing what
wanted.
I wanted, and I was
Right.
going to
And
get
you
it, and
was
I
gonna
didn't
get
give
it
it.
hook or crook. Right.
Hook or crook.
That's what that sounds like. You was
That's
avoiding
what that is.
them. That's what, if anything, you was avoiding they behind. That's what that was. It wasn't no avoidance. You was saying, I want what I want and I want it now.
And
Right.
that's it.
Yeah.
And the
And I'm
same
learning
way.
that about you. Like you
Right.
will, you let yourself roll off the back. You got your mind set on something.
That's it.
And that's a really good quality to have. Like
I told you, she got
I
that
think
still now.
avoidance in my world, avoidance is fantasy. You can hear all of this dreamy stuff. Oh my God. And and I'm gonna tell a story since Tracy want to be dropping bombs, which is foul what she just did on so many levels. But
No,
Tracy was
we always talk
fantastical.
about that. Come on
No,
now.
That was all
Tracy,
right.
I never
Thank
know.
you.
That's the first time I ever heard that story.
That was all right.
But that's the first time I ever even heard that content. Let's just say that too.
Well, I just wanted to make it light.
But fantastical is another way of avoidance, right? Oh my God, it's so pretty. Oh my God, it's so mystical. It's so beautiful, like a freaking unicorn, right? Everything is a beautiful, until it's not, right? And that to me that's avoidance. When, no matter how much you can't change, sugar, honey, iced tea, to sugar, right? It's sugar, honey, iced tea for a reason, right? That's why it's that. It's not sugar, right? And what I think that what we do is, especially in that kind of, that's one way for, like, in relationships. Oh my God, he is so this and that. Good and daggone well, when you get home, he gonna slap you upside the head. You know what I'm saying? Or good and that's pain, right? Or good and daggone well, you can't get $5. You be like, come on, Bobby, give me $5. Can I get $5? I need some bread. But you up there talking about, oh my God, Bobby, oh my God, he took me shopping. That's avoidance, right? Or, my rent's due. I know he got me. I can go get $250 from him real quick. And go over there. He'd be like, what? And you get up wet in the butt. See, that's avoidance.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
Okay.
well,
No.
I
And you
know
want to
that.
be talking
But wait a
about,
minute.
come
But
on,
no, but
let's
listen
talk
to the
about it.
audience. You're not talking about me.
No, I'm not talking about
ahead.
you. No.
I was
I'm
gonna
talking
say,
about, no, I'm not talking
Oh.
about, I'm talking about avoidance, like how I said fantastical,
Got
right?
it.
How in our minds,
fantasize, yeah.
no, let me clarify. No, I'm not talking about you. I'm just saying, I didn't tell the story. I'm talking about fantastical.
Right.
In fantasy, we have in our minds these beliefs of what it is or what it looks like.
Right.
And we believe that lie. And we sitting up there talking about, that's avoidance, right? You don't want to really deal with the sad sap, or, that you really didn't get invited to the party.
Right.
You know that the whole family is at the cookout. And they be like, Renee, I called you. Renee, you ain't get my call. You'd be like, no, you ain't call me. My phone ring for everybody else. So why ain't it ringing for you? So in your heart, you'd be like, oh, maybe they did call me, because you want to be accepted so much. You'd be like looking through the phone. Wait, y'all ready to be like this?
Mm-hmm.
You know they ain't call you. That's what I'm talking about. Like, because it is attached to some of our internal pain for being accepted, for wanting to be loved, for all of that stuff. So I'm gonna tell the story now. So going back down to downtown, okay. You know who I'm talking about, Crystal. I don't want to name names, but Tracy made me, okay, go out, and Tyrone was the culprit in this one too. I rest her, but it was him and right? And don't look at her face. Look at her face. She get tight because she already know. We was downtown. We was up there thinking we was grown. Come on, Renee. We gonna go over there and find out where they at. And I was like, this was when they was breakdancing. You remember when breakdancers was out and they was up in some park somewhere, and Tracy was like, that's it, we going, Renee. And she was so bossy, Crystal. And I could not wrap my mind around, like, I know it was gonna be trouble to go over there. And sure enough, they was over there. And you remember, Trey, the lights was on and they was DJing and breakdancing. And we went over there and found you know who and Tyrone. And she made me go. And Tracy was determined, she was determined that she was gonna take. You talking about avoidance. I was sitting there wishing to goodness gracious that I didn't have to walk with her from whatever that street is where the projects was at, all the way to the alphabets to find them wherever they was at doing the breakdancing. But you know, growing up as a child, as a young child, and then now a teenager, you know, I couldn't avoid it. So sometimes avoidance isn't necessarily an unhealthy thing if you're in friendship, right? Because Tracy I wasn't gonna have her walk to the alphabet city by herself.
Now, first of all,
don't make me drop his name.
Well, we're not going to drop any names.
Okay, all right.
But first of all, what she's not telling you is she was down with it. Okay. She was down with it because Tyrone was there. Okay. So now let's be clear.
No, I said, and of course Tyrone was there. I said that, Crystal. Did I not say and Tyrone was there? I said Tyrone was the culprit.
The audience, please understand. She's doing avoidance right now. Okay. Because doing it right now.
I said Tyrone was the culprit.
He and I both skipped down the street. We was fast walking. We almost ran.
Skip the fast walking.
We almost ran there.
Oh my gosh.
Because we were so googly-eyed and everything else. But please understand that was part of our dysfunction. And that was part of the lies that we told ourselves. And that's part of the avoidance.
Avoidance. Seemed like all three of us, the avoidance. I know. I had to get that in there. I could just see Tracy, oh my God, with them long legs. Come on, Renee. No, that was some fun times. And I had to get my story in there too, Chris. Though.
I know, but you know what though, Renee? You was beating me there, okay?
So
lies we tell ourselves.
Yeah. So with all of that, lies we're gonna reel it back in right now.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you.
Growing up, in spite of everything that we have gone through in our lives and what we're going to continue to go through, we had a lot of fun times.
Yes, we did.
You know what I mean, even with the pain and the avoidance and the lies we tell ourselves.
Correct.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It all helped to shape us and mold us into the women that we are today. Yes. That we can sit here and laugh about, because we got a whole lot of stories that we can tell.
I'll tell you right now. And secrets, apparently, because I ain't know nothing about that.
Girl, you don't know a lot of stories.
I know.
But in any event, we want to thank you all for sharing this time with us, laughing, and I hope that you got something out of it. Don't forget to click and subscribe.
Bye.
All right. And like. Okay. And you can find us on YouTube.
Yes.
Spotify, Google Pod, and also, what was the other one, ladies?
Anchor,
and Apple.
And Apple.
Yes.
Yeah. So we want you to come back and join us for our next episode episodes. We're not going to say episodes as we go forth and share in our testimonies and our walk through life. So thank you for joining Life Lessons. I want to say good night. We love you. God bless you. And ladies, love y'all too.
Good night. Love y'all too. I got something for both of y'all.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Bye.
Bye. Share.